everyone, this is Sean with Sewing Equipment Unlimited, and I wanted to do an overview on the Jack A5E-A. This is a computerized single needle lock stitch with automatic foot lifter, automatic thread trimmer, amongst some other features that we'll discuss shortly. This is also referred to as the A.M.H model, which denotes the machine's ability to sew very easily between lightweight fabrics, medium weight fabrics, and heavyweight fabrics, all with minimal input from the operator. And I'll explain that when we get to the features portion of the video. As far as the specs of the machine go, it has a 550 watt servo motor, can stitch up to 5,000 stitches per minute, and this machine is fully electric. What that means, this machine requires no external air supply to activate the functions like the thread trimmer or the presser foot lifter. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is kind of give you an overview of the features of the machine, and we're going to go from the left to right. So we're going to start over here at the needle bar and then make our way to the right of the machine to the motor. Okay, so starting at the needle bar, one thing you'll notice is that the needle bar for this machine is actually black. That's a special coating, DLC, diamond-like coating, which is a hardness coating for the needle bar to prevent excessive wear. So the needle bar will last you a lot longer. Realistically, if you're a hobbyist, the needle bar is going to last you the life of the machine. Moving forward, right here we have the thread nipper, which what that serves to do is when you start to sew, it's going to pull the thread tail to the underside of the fabric to give you a nice clean finished edge on the top of the material, and I'll demonstrate that when we go over some of the demo stuff. Over here you've got your 3 knuckle buttons. This one's to activate your reverse, and if you hear that noise, that's the actual stepper motor that's kicking in the machine to reverse. So no longer do we have the manual lever that used to be over here on this side of the machine. The reverse function is now done by a stepper motor, which is a lot more quieter and a lot more accurate. Here we have the incremental function for the stitches. So quickly pressing this button once is going to do a half step for a stitch, and then pressing it a little bit longer is going to give you a full stitch, and then holding down the button is going to give you a continuous stitch. And this button doesn't utilize the foot pedal, so you just press it once and it's going to advance the stitch either half, full, or if you hold it down, it'll continuously stitch for you. And the biggest benefit for this is, especially for novice sewers, if you're trying to get to the very edge of the fabric, you can use this function and slowly step your way to the edge of the fabric without having to try and do it with the foot pedal and possibly overshooting it. I'm guilty of that. I've done it plenty of times. And then one of the neat features and unique to Jack is this half step function, which will basically take whatever your stitch width is and cut it in half. Couple of applications for that is a certain area that might need a little bit of reinforcing. You can do that half stitch function and get more stitches in that area, which is always can be beneficial, especially if it's like a critical area with where the seams are going to be under more pressure. Okay, so here at the top of the machine, you have your integrated bobbin winder, which is right here. This is the tension disc for the bobbin winder. And what you can do is actually, while you're sewing, you can have a bobbin winding at the same time. It has this little lever, which once you have a bobbin placed in here, and I can kind of demonstrate that really quick. Once you have a bobbin placed in there, when the bobbin is fully wound, this lever gets pushed out and deactivates the bobbin winder, so you don't end up wasting a bunch of thread. So here you have the LCD panel. I'm not going to go into a super deep dive on this. I'll touch on some of the functions. When you buy a machine from us, we do include a separate tutorial video that we produced for our customers that goes into a deep dive on all these functions, all these settings, basically so our customer can get the most out of their machine. But going forward, just on the brief overview, right here you have your stitch width indicator. So you'll notice that right here, there used to be the stitch dial that a lot of machines have. Now it's done via stepper motor that's integrated into the machine. Here you can set your pressure foot lift height while you're sewing. So if you happen to change the direction of your fabrics frequently, you can adjust this height. You can set it lower, and what that'll ultimately do is just extend the life of your pressure foot lifter stepper motor. Right here you have your start and end tack functions. That W button is to do like a reinforcement stitch, similar to a bar tack, but without the ability to zigzag. The N button is a segmented sewing, which allows you to program a pattern. So if you wanted to do like the same size label for multiple iterations for multiple hours, you could program it in there, tell the machine the dimensions or how many stitches the label requires, and basically each press of the button is going to advance the machine those amount of stitches that you program. Here you have your needle position sensor, which you can leave the needle in the up or down position. Usually people will leave it in the down position, but sometimes you can leave it in the up position if you have a weird case that you need to do that for. Here you can deactivate the thread trimmer. Instances where you would want to deactivate it are, I've seen some customers that will do some things where they'll leave extra thread on their fabric, and then they'll take that thread and with the needle they'll tuck the excess thread into the back of the stitch and hide any obvious signs that there's like any type of reinforcement, which is a neat thing to do. It is time consuming, so most people are going to buy this kind of machine for that efficiency, so most people are going to leave the thread trimmer on. Here you can do some things like setting the turning the presser foot lifter, or changing the way the pressure foot lifter activates. Like when it activates, you can have it lift up after the machine trims. Certain things like that. The neat feature that I like about this machine is this button here, which is the compensating stitch. So where you have your back tacking functions, start and end, this is doing it a different way in that it will
double off, double end off, start and end condense stitch.
So what the condensed stitch is going to do is stitch in place instead of the old school version of doing stitching forward 3, back 3, and then U sewing. This is going to sew several stitches in place and then allow you to take control of the sewing. What that does is basically leaves your fabric leaving a lot nicer on the underside, because you don't get that bird's nesting that you might get with the start and end tacking. It's a nice function. I always advise customers to play with it and see if that's something that they like or not. Additionally, you can turn off the speaker. You have your factory reset button, which is really nice. I do advise customers to play with these buttons and figure out what they do, figure out if they like settings a certain way, and if they get kind of lost and the machine's doing maybe not what they wanted it to do, you can hit the factory reset button. It's just going to go back to its factory defaults, and then you can kind of mess with things again and get the machine going. But for the most part, the machine's set up how 90% of the people are going to utilize it. And the thread nipper, that's the little piece that I showed that's on the needle bar up here. You can turn that on and off if you want to have your thread tail exposed on the top side of the fabric. There's some other buttons that don't apply to this model in particular. And then you also have this button right here, which is your pattern seam. I'll have to do a demo on that. It's hard to explain, but you can do some decorative stitches with this machine. It's nothing like a zigzag, but it's basically where the machine will, in using the reverse function, allow the machine to stitch forward a few times, backwards a few times, forwards a few times, and do so in that it creates a pattern in your actual stitch. So it's a nice little function to have, a little, you can do it with like top stitching, any of your apparel. And then of course you have your speed functions right here.
Speed down.
So we can take the machine as low as 200, you saw there.
Speed up.
And as fast as 5,000. I'm going to bring it down to what I'm
down.
comfortable with, which is 1,500.
Speed up.
And one thing to note is that there is a lot of articulation in the foot pedal, and the foot pedal is very responsive depending on how far you have the foot pedal pressed down. And what I mean by that is if you're barely applying pressure to the foot pedal forward, the machine's not going to sew very fast, even if you have it set to 5,000 stitches per minute. But then obviously if you press the foot pedal all the way forward, then you'll get that full speed. So it's a pretty responsive foot pedal, and it allows you to have a lot of control on your sewing. But again, the benefit is for novice sewers, you can go as slow as 200 stitches per minute, and that's going to give you a lot of control for those novice sewers to get behind the machine, get comfortable, and as they build that confidence, increase the stitches per minute. Another interesting thing about this machine in particular, the A5E, not only does it have the direct drive motor, the 550 watts, which gives it plenty of power, this is what Jack would call their intelligent computerized lock stitch machine. What that means is within the control panel and the direct drive motor electronics, there are a couple of sensors that are detecting things from your fabric thickness that utilize sensors in the pressure foot and feed dog that can detect how thick your fabric is, in addition to how the machine is feeding as it's sewing. And what it does is it can take several samples per second. I think it's up to 10,000 samples of your sewing per second. And the machine has a database of seam characteristics, and it can adjust things like your feed rate and even do something called torque vectoring, which will give the machine more torque, more power when you're sewing things that are a little bit heavier, whether it's several layers of denim, canvas, cordura, stuff like that, even vinyl. So the machine has some sensors built in that basically help it adapt to what you're sewing, whether it's a very light bridal fabric or a heavier weight like cordura, canvas type material. The machine can detect all that and will basically optimize itself in the way that it's feeding and providing power to the machine to give you more consistent, nice stitches and seam quality. Okay, so the machine is going to come with everything you need to start sewing. You're going to have your oil, your bobbins, and your needles, and your bobbin case is already going to be installed inside the machine. Additionally, if you're interested in, we will be providing basically a beginner's package for industrial sewing machines, which is going to have some additional bobbins, needles, and the most common presser feet that we see people utilize. And that's on our website. If it's not up there already, it's going to be up there shortly. And that's going to be a really good beginner package that's going to set you up. I think it's got like a magnetic guide as well. Like I said, different presser feet and like a zipper foot, piping feet, hidden zipper foot, just a bunch of different feet that will help you maximize your use of the machine and make sewing a little bit easier. So one of the questions we get asked the most is, who is this machine for? And really, to put it simply, anyone. As far as this A5E-A, it really is a very capable machine. The way that we have this machine configured right now is with a DBX1 needle, which is more of a light duty to medium duty application. But we can reconfigure these machines to utilize a heavier needle, feed dogs, change out the needle plate, and we can set it up for a DPX5 needle system, which is going to allow you to sew heavier weight fabrics. What's really nice about this machine with the torque vectoring and just the capabilities in general, you can go from doing apparel and go up to doing some heavier weight fabrics without any real fuss of the machine. It's quite capable, and so that's why I really say the machine's for anybody. These machines are used in production environments. They're used by hobbyists, from anything from apparel to, we have some people that do like handbags out of canvas and vinyl. You are going to be limited. You're going to want to use more of the apparel weight, lighter weight canvas or vinyl. But you can absolutely do it. We have a lot of customers that do utilize this exact machine for those types of functions. But it's a very capable machine, anything light to heavy weight. Now, do keep in mind that if you're trying to go from a lighter weight machine setup to a heavyweight, you may have to adjust the timing on your machine to accommodate that size of the needle. The way that these machines are timed, and this is for any industrial machine, there's a very small clearance between the tip of the hook and the needle, and we're talking about under a millimeter. So if you do too large of a jump in needle size, it may affect your stitch quality because the machine may skip stitches in that instance, or tear your thread up because it's not catching correctly, or even bend your needle if you're using too large of a needle with your existing setup. So keep that in mind. You may need to retime your machine if you go to a larger needle if the jump is large enough. But these machines do have enough of a leeway to go up and down a couple of needle sizes, and it won't affect anything. All right, so now to the part of the video that most of you are probably waiting for. We're going to do some demonstrations using different fabrics, and then also demonstrate some of the functions of the machine. I have some lightweight ripstop nylon, some military fire retardant fabric, some vinyl, Cordura, different weights, some canvas, eyelet mesh, some fleece, a little bit of everything, just so you can get a good idea of the capabilities of the machine. So let's go ahead and start with this. This is just a fire retardant fabric, and we'll just go ahead and demonstrate a couple of seams. And what I had set up in that situation was the compensating stitch. So there's no back tacking, but the machine did several small stitches at the beginning and at the very end of the seam to reinforce it. So now I'm going to try some very lightweight nylon ripstop. Typically I would recommend using a needle feed for this kind of stuff, but let's see how it performs. Yeah, so I didn't pull on the fabric as well as or as much as I should have as it was sewing, so there's a little bit of puckering. But once again, I didn't use the reinforcement stitches. Let me see if I can try that again. Applying a little bit of pressure. Okay, that came out a little bit better on the right. So I will admit that when you're dealing with very lightweight or difficult to feed fabrics, I would always recommend a needle feed machine, and that would be the A6F TAC-E. If you're interested in that, we'll be doing a video shortly. But the needle feed aspect of that machine lends itself very well to difficult to feed fabrics. Next, I've got some vinyl. The underside. Very nice quality seam, and keep in mind I'm using a very lightweight apparel thread for this. Typically you'd want to use a heavier weight, like a Tex 70, Tex 90, Tex 135 for these kind of stitches. But you can see the A5E has no problem going through it, and we'll even double up the stitch, or I should say double up the material. And where some other machines might have problems with it, the A5E does not. It can easily sew through all of these, all those layers. Here we've got some 500 denier Cordura. And actually, now I'll go ahead and demonstrate some of the other functions. So here I'm going to demonstrate the back tacking.
Start bar tack stitch. End bar tack stitch.
So what this is going to do is it's going to do a start and end tack, which is going to, in this instance, the way I have it programmed, it's going to stitch forward 3 times, stitch back 3 times, and then I am back in control of the sewing. And then at the end, it's going to stitch backwards 3 times, forwards 3 times, and then trim as it normally would. And I should mention that this is a automatic presser foot, so pressing halfway back on the foot pedal lifts your foot pedal, and then lifts your presser foot, and then pressing all the way back on the foot pedal after you started sewing will trim your thread. So in this instance, we're going to see the back tacking, and if you pay attention, I'm only going to press the foot pedal once and see what the machine does. So you see it did those stitches on its own. Now I'm back in control. Okay, now we're at the end. I'm not touching it, and I'm going to press back on the foot pedal. So I pressed back on the foot pedal once. The machine did the reinforcement stitches, and you can see at the front, which is up here, 3, and at the back 3. And then here's the reverse, that's the back, and that's the front. So very nice clean stitches, very nice reinforcement. And you can do a double reinforcement stitch where it would do that operation twice. I like it once, it's very nice. Another thing to mention is that because the machine utilizes stepper motors for the reverse function, it allows it to be very accurate and allows it to feed the fabric very consistent. And what I mean by that is if you pay attention to the stitches for the back tacking, they're actually going inside the same hole that was previously made. Stitch and stitch is what it's called. Basically where the reverse function and then the forward function of the back tacking put the seam in the exact previous needle hole that was made. So you get a very nice consistent start tack and end tack. So that's and I'll go ahead and demonstrate some other stuff on this fabric. So that was the back tacking. We'll leave the back tacking on for now. And then we're going to demonstrate some of these knuckle buttons. So now I'm in control. I did the back tacking. So right now I have the stitch length set for 4.5. And let me go ahead and advance it. And then I'm going to hit the half button up here. And I released it. Trim the thread. And then you can see that half stitch function where they change size. And I didn't have to go in and do anything on the LCD panel to change that stitch size. You can see they're wider here, narrower here, wider at the beginning. I didn't have to do anything with that. It just, by hitting that half stitch button, it automatically did that for me. So you can do reinforcement areas like this very easily. Another thing to demonstrate is going to be the knuckle button for the reverse. So we'll leave the back tacking on. Okay, I'm in control. And then the reverse function here, as you're pressing the foot pedal, so I'm going to press it forward. Then I'm holding the button. It's going to sew backwards. Release it. It's going to sew forward. Backwards, forwards. Get to the end. And trim the fabric. So here in the middle, you can see where I was going back and forth on some of these stitches, simply by using the knuckle button, reverse button right there. And then one of the other functions of the knuckle buttons is the half stitch, full stitch. So here you're going to see I'm going to do a quick press. Right now the needle's in the down position. When I do that quick press, the needle's going to go to the up position. And if I do it again, very quickly. And then if I hold it a little bit longer, it's going to do a full stitch. So it's going to go from the down position back to the down position, but it's going to advance one stitch. And then of course, you could also hold it. And while I was doing all of that, I wasn't pressing the foot pedal at all. The machine was making those advances on its own. So it's very good if you're a novice sewer, you get close to the edge and you don't want to accidentally overshoot it. You just go one stitch at a time. Okay, I'm at the edge, or literally at the edge now. So there you can see. And we were just incrementing one stitch at a time, and then at the very end, we got up to the edge, and then we did the back tacking. Here we have a different fabric. It's a lighter weight Cordura. I believe it's a 200 denier. Let's see, what function should I show? Let's go ahead and decrease the stitch length.
Stitch length decrease.
And set it to 3.5 millimeters wide. And then we'll leave the needle position in the
Up needle position.
up position. And what you're going to see now is as I'm stitching the machine, when I stop, when I lift my foot off the pedal, you're going to see that the needle bar is going to be in the up position. So let me go ahead and, okay, so I stopped pressing the foot pedal. I lifted my foot off the foot pedal, and you can see the needle bar is in the up position. So you can adjust that needle position sensor to the up position or down position. Generally,
Down needle position.
most people are going to leave it in the down position, because then what you can do is when you stop sewing, press back on the foot pedal halfway. You can rotate your fabric by doing that. If you were to leave the needle position sensor in the up portion, or the up motion, if you were to lift your foot off the presser foot, you wouldn't have control to pivot because there would be nothing holding the fabric. So just a simple box doing that. And probably the last thing I'll demonstrate for this would be the the nipper function.
Electronic thread tension off.
And what you're going to see, and this is referred to on some machines as a thread wiper, on others as a nipper. It does the same thing. What you're going to notice, I'm going to do two different seams, and I'll explain them in a second.
Electronic thread tension on.
there we go. So what I wanted to demonstrate was the thread nipper and what it does. So by having the thread nipper on, this little magnetic piece right here puts tension on the thread and pulls the thread tail to the underside of the fabric. So you'll notice that these two have a thread tail, and then this one over here does not. This is the right side of the fabric, the top side. This is the underside. So what that thread nipper does is just pulls that to the underside, and it gives you a cleaner right side look to your seam. And there might be an instance where you want to turn that off, but that's one of the features that these computerized machines also have. And other than that, I'll just go ahead and demonstrate some of these other materials that I have here. Let me look for something a little bit interesting. So here we have an eyelet mesh. So what you would find on some jerseys. And typically when you sew these, you want to have a slightly, well, it depends, but usually we'll do a slightly larger stitch length. We'll leave it at 3.5 and see how she does. And this stuff can be very difficult to sew because it's not as stable as a woven material because of the eyelets. So it can be a little bit tricky. I would probably suggest in most instances to use a needle feed machine for one of these, but you can certainly do it with something like the A5E. Let's see what we have. And then here's another common material, denim. This is a 12-ounce denim. What we'll do for this demonstration is just fold it a few times just so we can show how the machine functions going through multiple layers of denim. And with this machine in particular, I've tested it going through like, I think 10 layers of denim, and it sewed just fine. The issue that I ran into was the presser foot height. But yeah, this machine has no problem going through denim. The back side. So overall, it's a very capable machine. I demonstrated it going through Cordura, some very lightweight fabrics. I demonstrated it going through the vinyl as well. Very versatile, probably one of the more versatile machines when it comes to computerized lock stitches. It's an amazing machine with a lot of features, and it comes in at an entry-level price, but by no means would I call this a entry-level machine. Certainly it can be used by a novice, but what I meant by that is that it's got a lot of functions that you would typically find on machines that are going to cost a couple of $100s more from different brands. So one of the big benefits of the Jack brand, they're very reliable machines, very easy to maintain. As long as you maintain the machine, it's going to last you a very long time. But anyways, hope that gave you a pretty good overview on the Jack A5E Tac A. Hope the demonstrations helped. Hope they answered some of your questions. Of course, if you're interested in this machine or any other machine that we offer, feel free to reach out to us by email, and we'll be happy to help you out, and hopefully we can do business. Thanks so much.